To our exclusive sit down with Governor DeSantis. We pressed him about his stance on immigration, of course, abortion, and his showdown with Disney. But first, we talked about why he was in Texas today, touting a plan to get gallons of gas down to $2. So you're here in Midland, Texas, to launch your energy plan. Part of that would include having gas prices go to $2 a gallon by 2025. But early on as governor, you really were pushing electric vehicles. Now, this plan really has a heavy emphasis on fossil fuels. Why the change?
Well, there hasn't been a change. So as governor, I got money from the Volkswagen settlement to do EV infrastructure, so I could either use it or lose it. So that's why we did it. We put in the charging stations, but I would never support mandating the production of EVs. I think that should be driven by the market. We're also now in a situation where this is the worst inflation and the highest costs families have faced in America for many decades, and they're getting hit from all sides. Energy dominance, using the resources we have, that is one way to reduce prices at the pump, which is hurting people, but also prices throughout the economy, because energy prices permeate the cost of goods, it affects businesses, and then, of course, the larger context of this helps our national security to be energy dominant. And so that's the message that we're delivering. And our goal is, come 2025, if we implement all these policies, we have gas close to $4 nationally. Let's get it down to $2. That's the goal.
A number of your opponents have been really critical of your 6-week abortion ban in Florida. Donald Trump, who's in Iowa today, has called it a terrible mistake. He says that you've gone too far. Can you trust that Donald Trump still has the views with regard to abortion that reflect the base of the GOP party?
Well, when you provide pro-life protections that says when a baby has a heartbeat, that there's protections, that is not something that pro-lifers think is terrible. They think that that is a noble and just thing to do. Of course, there have been many other states that have also done that. He claimed to be pro-life. He spoke at the March for Life and was waxing eloquently about how everybody counts. For him to then attack people like Iowa, South Carolina, Florida, all these other states, I thought was a big mistake. But look, I mean, I think he's taking positions that I think are different from what he took in 2015 when he first came onto the scene. And I do think he's a different candidate today than he was back then. And I think the one back then was probably closer to where Republican voters want to be than the latest iteration.
You said he claimed to be pro-life. Do you think he is pro-life?
Well, you tell me. I think that if you have something where you have a baby that has a detectable heartbeat, if you're pro-life, you would want to say that there should be protections there. And if he's saying that that's a terrible thing, I know most pro-life voters would think that he's wrong.
When abortion has been on the ballot, whether it's been in battleground states or deeply red states, it's been a losing issue. If we look ahead to the general election, as you know, the polls indicate that the majority of Americans do support some access, at least, to abortion. How do you convince them to support you?
Well, I think a couple things is one, we have a very big, diverse state. There's our country. There's a lot of differences of opinion on this. Here in Texas, they're going to have a much different policy with respect to right to life than California or New York. And so we understand that. We understand that this is a bottom-up movement, that ultimately, you make progress in your communities, in your states. Some will be more than others. But I do think that almost all Americans agree, at some point there should be protections. You wouldn't want to say that the day before birth, it would be fine, to abort an unborn child. You do have national Democrats that have very difficult time articulating when that limit would be. And so I think what you'll see is different states probably come to different conclusions over the ensuing years. And I understand it'll continue to be an issue. But one of the things you need to do, and I think this is where hopefully we can bring people together, is, okay, once the baby's born, are you still pro-life then? And, people on my side haven't always done a good job of doing that. In Florida, we expanded postpartum medical care for a year for poor women after birth. We've also launched a fatherhood initiative to make sure that the dads are there to help. And then we have programs like Universal School Choice for mothers, which a lot of single mothers use. And then we've made all baby items tax-free. So diapers, wipes, cribs, strollers in Florida, you raise kids tax-free. We think that that's something that's good. And then finally, under my wife's leadership, we have a program called Hope Florida, which is not limited to just single mothers, but that's a lot of people that go in to seek government assistance. We're linking charities, churches, businesses in each community through a care portal so that they can offer help for what's needed. And you know what happens? When those groups get involved, a lot of times there's no more government assistance that's needed. So it's really helped lift people up.
Of course, we're here in Texas. Recently, you've talked about that you would get the military involved to shoot drug cartel members who are at the border. And I want to quote, you said when somebody's got a backpack on and they're breaking through the wall. How would you be able to tell who a cartel member is?
Same way you would tell for anything. I mean, you know, for example, I served in Iraq back in the day. The Al-Qaeda didn't wear uniforms. You know, the typical Arab male would had the man dress on. You didn't know if they had a bomb strapped to them or not. They carry around AK-47s, normal civilians would. So you couldn't even say if they had. So you had to make a determination. Can you positively identify somebody as hostile through either hostile action or hostile intent? And then you do it. Same way anyone would do that, even in the United States. So you will do that. We'll be collecting intelligence, but we are not going to let this state get our country overrun with fentanyl. We have tens of thousands of fentanyl deaths every year now, and it's all coming from across the border. And I've met parents in Texas, angel moms in Texas, who've lost kids because of the fentanyl overdose. And the thing is, you know, yes, there are some people that get addicted to opioids, and it's a tough thing to handle. But there's also people who think they're taking a Xanax, and it may be laced with fentanyl, and then their kid dies. And that's a tragic thing. We actually had a case in Florida where a baby died. The family rented an Airbnb. The baby was crawling on the floor. There was fentanyl residue left over from the previous tenant, and the baby died. So this is lethal, lethal stuff. They are killing our citizens. They are invading our country. We have every right to hold them accountable and to fight back.
But with regard to bringing the military in to shoot them, just want to say you have touted yourself as the law and order candidate. How is that not a recipe for chaos?
It's not a recipe for right now is the recipe for chaos. I mean, you see all the people coming across the border. A lot of these countries like Venezuela, they're letting people out of prison and they're sending them to the border. I mean, what is happening in this country is a problem. There's Russians coming across the border. There's people from the Middle East. As much as I hate to say this, I think it's true that we're going to look back at some point and say there's going to have been some terrorist attack in this country that is going to be traced to what's happened to the border. And then, of course, we know run-of-the-mill crimes that are happening. So we've never had a more chaotic situation. As Commander-in-Chief, you have to defend your people, and you have to ensure the territorial integrity of your country. Right now, we have the drug cartels are controlling parts of our border more so than our own U.S. government. That will change when I become president. We'll make sure we're defending the country.
Even before you announced that you were running, you were seen by and large as the one Republican who could take down Donald Trump. But recently, we've seen top GOP donors like Ken Griffin, billionaire who supported you for a long time, fellow Floridian, who's saying, you know, he's going to stand on the sidelines. And recently, referring to you, he said, I don't know his strategy. It's not clear to me what voter base he's intending to appeal to. How do you answer his criticism?
Well, here's the thing. I'm a leader. I'm not a follower. So we lead and we do what we think is right. And people can support us or not support us financially. But you should not be led by trying to please very wealthy donors. And I've never operated that way. So, for example, it's been in the press that he's been upset with, us having the tussle with Disney over the school curriculum. Well, look, we were right on the school curriculum. We stood for parents' rights and education. And I'm not going to back down from that because I think it's the right thing to do, especially as a dad of a 6, a 5, and a 3-year-old. So sometimes if people are expecting you to kind of dance to their tune, as a leader, that's not the type of leader that you want. You want someone that's going to do what they think is right and is going to stand by that, regardless of some of the fallout that happens. Sometimes you got to do the right thing, knowing that you may upset some donors. But you know what? That's what we should expect from our leaders.
But Disney aside, and we can get to that in a moment, what do you say, just on the face of his criticism that I don't know his strategy, it's not clear to me the voter base?
Well, our strategy is very clear. We're actually showing up in the early states. We're doing the type of meetings and events that you need to do so that voters get to know you. These voters in these early states, they take their responsibilities very seriously. They want to kick the tires. They want to learn about what you've done. They want to learn about you, what you're going to do for the country. And so we're doing that, and we're going to continue to do that. And so there's always going to be people who are going to say this or that, but we're delivering the message. When we do that, we have a great deal of success. We got a lot more work to do because there's a lot more people to meet, but we're pleased with our progress.
You brought up Disney. It's a feud that's become rather public. I should say, for the record, that ABC News is owned by Disney. Disney, of course, now has this litigation against you. Nikki Haley has criticized you, saying businesses are our partners. Mike Pence has called this fight, quote, beyond the scope of what I, as a conservative, limited government Republican, would be prepared to do, and following the footsteps of the radical left. As president, would you wage these battles with private companies?
First of all, this is about kids. So we had a parents' rights and education bill that said we're not going to have things like transgender ideology in the elementary schools. Disney opposed that. They have a right to, I guess, take these positions. I signed the bill, and then the company came out and said they were going to use their corporate resources to repeal the bill or get it struck down in the courts. And so that's an attack on our policies, on our parents, on our kids, that the vast majority of Floridians supported those policies. So I'm going to fight to defend those policies. I think a lot of that you cited, that's kind of the old guard Republicans, where they basically always just bend the knee to the big, powerful corporations. You've got to stand for what's right. So I'm always going to stand for our kids. I'm a parent of a 6'5" and a 3-year-old. And it's not just me and my wife. There's people who have different political perspectives than us that are in the same boat as parents. We want the schools focused on reading, writing, math, science. It is wrong to tell a kindergartner that their gender's fluid. That should not be in the schools. So we were right to take that stand. I think Disney made a mistake in doing what they're doing, but we have every right to push back and defend our policies against those who are seeking to undermine them. And that was the right thing to do.
But are you concerned at all that it might give other businesses pause about locating in Florida out of fear that perhaps there'll be some retaliation?
Look what's happening on the ground. We're the #1 state for new business formations. We're the #1 state for net in-migration, fastest growing state in America, top GDP growth amongst all large states. People they're walking over broken glass barefoot to come down to Florida because it's a great business environment. And oh, by the way, Disney parks, they had an arrangement that Universal, SeaWorld, they've got special treatment. And a good economy is not about giving one company special treatment. A good economy is about creating a good environment for everybody. So Disney is operating in a great business environment, but so is Universal and SeaWorld. Only now Disney's not getting to basically be exempt from things that their competitors have to follow. That's actually a better form of a market economy because you do want the rules to be uniform.
Our thanks to Ron DeSantis for the conversation. We'll have much more from our conversation with the governor coming up in just a few minutes, including what a President DeSantis would advise the country on boosters and what separates him from the current leader of the GOP field, Donald Trump.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.